Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, please. Due to the clergy schedule, we will need to begin services immediately. I'm going to ask those who are standing to please take seats. The family is aware and asks you to please join them at Shiva after the services take place. Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our services, if we can please kindly turn off all cell phones or electronic devices, or please place them on silent. Thank you.
First of all, welcome to everyone gathered today, and thank you so much for being here. I want to start by saying that the Jewish funeral service is really based on one word, That word in Hebrew is kavod. The best translation of kavod into English is honor. And quite simply, it is not difficult at all to reach that standard as we come together in sadness today to honor the life of Dr. Murray Matez and to stand with this exceptional and still growing family that he and Cookie built over these decades and these generations. We know that it feels too soon to be back here in this space, and too soon for this family to once again be traveling the path of the mourner. Yet you will do so with love, you'll do so with each other's support, and that of your Bethel and Kol Ami and South Florida communities, and everyone here, and everyone who will hear of what is said here today will be deeply touched by the stories that Murray inspired, which seem to be in unlimited supply, and the accomplishments that he achieved, which is a list that is just as long. His was a beautiful, meaningful, helpful, and purposeful life, and he will be missed by those who loved him forever. A good friend and great admirer of Murray, his and our Chazan, Elisa Pomerantz-Borough, leads us in Psalm 23.
Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai rohi lo echzar, binotei yarbitzeni al mei meluchot yanaleni nafshi eshovev yanecheni v'magle tzedek leman shemo gam ki elech begeit salmavet lo irara ki ata imadi shivtecha umishantecha hema yenachamuni Tarach lefanai shulchan neged zorerai dishan tavashem en roshi kosi revaya ach tov chesed yirdefuni koyem echayai v'shavti beveit Adonai leorech yamim. God is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside still waters, and restores my soul. You lead me in right paths for the sake of your name. Even when I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You have set a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever. It is truly an honor for Rabbi Englander and me to be here during this difficult time as we mourn the loss of an incredible soul, Dr. Murray Matez. I feel grateful to have known your family for 20 years now, and in a few moments, you will share deeply from your own hearts. I have always felt embraced with love and care whenever we are together, and I think that everyone in the room feels this way. Everyone loved your mom and dad, your bubby and pop-up. They taught all of us, by example, how to be welcoming and dedicated and loving. As we sat together yesterday to comfort each other and to share stories, I knew there would be a lot of laughter and a lot of tears, but mostly an immense feeling of love and respect. The love of family that your parents, your grandparents gave you is palpable. They taught you how to love by showing you love. And just about a year and a half ago, we spent time together talking about your mom, your bubby, Cookie. I remember at the time asking Murray about their courtship, and he told me that his cousin Lillian tried to set them up. He had just finished residency, and though he had been given her phone number, he was just too busy to go on a blind date. Thank goodness, Lillian persisted and actually dialed the phone number for him and handed him the phone. They went on their first date to Greenbriers, and the rest, as they say, is history. Murray was completely smitten, and he never let her go. Who could blame him? She was beautiful, intelligent, witty, the whole package. Their first date was in July, and by December, they were engaged. They both just knew right away, and they were married on June 15th, 1958. I remember asking Murray the secret to their long marriage, and he said they were very much in love. They respected each other, they shared family values, and they never went to bed mad. Good role modeling for you guys. And for you, no pressure. Murray was the older brother to Jerry and to Alan, who always felt honored to be referred to as Murray's brothers, hand-me-downs and all. Jerry recalls when Murray was a student at PCOM, he would come to visit him, perhaps just to get the free food. But as you matured, you became confidants. And Alan told me that Murray was his mentor for medical school and for music. He even inspired Alan to start his own dance band. In addition to the clarinet and the saxophone, Murray loved boating and fishing, especially Smart Cookie. Other things that brought him joy included playing Snood on his computer. I still don't know what that is. The fishing simulator in Florida, and his love of sports, especially when his teams won, the Eagles, his Phillies, and Georgia. Of course, his greatest love of all was his beautiful family, Mitchell and Tracy, Andy and Ron, and Bruce all feel so proud to be Dr. Matez's children. And as proud as he was of his many accomplishments in the medical world, and there were many, nothing brought him more nachas than his family. He was incredibly proud of each one of you. In recent years, I'm told he loved to talk to the canasta ladies about his amazing grandchildren, Sam and Jordan, Ilana and Adam, Lacey, Chad, Max, and Melinda. You all feel fortunate to be his grandchildren and to see him reaching monumental milestones. You cherish the quality time that you were blessed to share with your pop-up. And personally, I admired the way he chanted Haftarah on Rosh Hashanah in honor of his 90th birthday. Not bad, inspirational. Murray was the rock and center of this amazing family. He was devoted to his own parents and modeled behavior on how to care for family members and how to be a mensch. What an incredible gift for all of you to know that you are loved so deeply and to feel that love and to know that your dad's love, your pop-pop's love, your brother's love will always be with you. His physical body is no longer with us, but his love will always remain. While his presence will always be felt, it is comforting to know that he and his beloved Cookie are together again. So continue to live fully and love deeply, and you will forever be blessed by the soul of this very special man. We pray that Mordechai Nutta ben Tzvi Aryeh v'Chaya Sarah will be a source of blessing and inspiration. Zichrono livracha, may he rest in peace. And please say with me, Amen. We're now going to hear from family members, starting with Bruce. And Chad.
Just in case I fall apart. So before I talk about my dad, some of you may have some questions about the endowment fund that was listed as a potential charity. We're starting an endowment fund at Bethel in memory of my mom. We just hadn't finished all the work. So if you log on to the Bethel website, you won't be able to actually donate to it by credit card. You can send a check, or you can talk to the office and see until we actually get the fund established, if you feel so moved to honor my mom in that way and the memory of my dad. We should all live to be 96 and live a life like my dad. It was truly spectacular, and I wish that for every single one of us here. I bought this Father's Day card, excuse me, last week from my dad. I didn't have a chance to give it to him. On it is a quote from Mark Twain. When I was a boy of 14, my father was so ignorant I could hardly stand to have the old man around. But when I got to be 21, I was astonished at how much the old man had learned. While the ages in Twain's quote may have been somewhat different for me, that about sums up my relationship with my dad in a nutshell. I'm astonished at how much the old man learned. My relationship with my dad was not complicated. I used to be jealous of people who'd say their dad was their best friend. That wasn't us. Growing up, he wasn't my best friend. He wasn't even my friend. He was my father, pure and simple, in the only way that he knew how to be a father, a very traditional, pre-1960s type father. Not the fairy tale storybook type father that we see in books and movies, but he was my hero in so many ways, and I believe he did his job as my father extremely well. And later in life, I came to appreciate and respect him and let go of that fantasy of the father that I wished for as a child. I learned ultimately that he believed his purpose as a father was to give me all the skills I needed to become successful and happy. Remember that, I'll come back to it later. Dad's role for us was a provider. He worked hard. That was his full-time job, and he did it in stellar fashion. My mom's full-time job was to raise us and take care of him, take care of our home. He provided discipline when needed and taught me the lessons in life that I believed I needed to know, that he believed I needed to know in order to thrive as a person and become successful and happy. Thank you, Dad. He worked long hours in his office in Camden at Cherry Hill Hospital and in his den in our family home on Cherry Hill Boulevard. He was his own bookkeeper And when he wasn't working at the office or the hospital, he was most often in his den dictating medical notes and reports and doing the bookkeeping. His time off was mostly spent with my mom and other adults. They had weekly date nights on Wednesdays and Saturdays and adult vacations without the kids, except for a few trips here and there. Later in life, when I realized how much the old man had learned, I learned that he believed they needed that time together alone without us kids, because mom needed a vacation from her full-time job as much as he did. And he firmly believed that parents needed to have alone time without their children. After a happy and successful 65-year marriage, it's hard to argue with that logic and reasoning. He also spent a lot of his free time boating and fishing. You'll hear a lot about that today. Growing up, he didn't teach me to throw a baseball or a football or how to ride a bike. He didn't play catch with me in the backyard or take me out to the movies. And he didn't sit down and talk to me about things that were going on in my life. But what he did amazingly. He didn't show much interest with my friends or things that interested me or do my homework with me or talk to me about school, other than a comment or two about my report card. 5 A's and a B? Why not all A's? And oy vey if I brought home a C. He expected and demanded better of me. And even though he and mom vehemently denied that later in life, when I discovered how much he had learned, I discovered that that was his way of motivating me to do better and want me to do better, and he succeeded in doing that. When he'd come to see a show I was in high school or as an adult, he'd give me the old, "Great job, let's go, Cookie." That was it. Dad didn't show a lot of emotion when we were kids, although he became more and more emotional in his later years. He didn't say, "I love you," and he didn't expect to be told, "I love you" back. It just wasn't his thing. But I knew he loved me, and it really didn't matter that we didn't say it to each other. I don't think he needed to hear it. And later in life, especially in the last 20 years or so, I grew to know that he respected me also. In my adult, in my adult years, he was always there for me if I needed help or advice. He helped me financially at times when I needed it, and he helped me in my life and career decisions, and I never once felt judged by him. I can't tell you how many people I've come across in my career who would say, "Oh, you're Dr. Matez's son," and they would rave about him. He was their doctor, he was their pediatrician, he gave birth to them, you name it. In fact, I'm pretty darn sure that there were a few court personnel who gave me some special favors just because he found out that I was Dr. Matez's son. Not judges, court personnel, for any judges in the room. So, as I said, he wasn't the fairy tale storybook type father, but he was a wonderful father, mentor, and role model. He was also a fantastic diagnostician, I can never say that word, doctor, and businessman. When Margie and I separated and I was struggling to find myself and my way in life, he simply said to me, whatever you need, we will help you. You'll figure it out. He helped me without condition. He let me make my own mistakes. Some of them were big ones. And he even let me know when he disagreed. But he didn't judge me, and I never heard, "I told you so." And he didn't need to argue or to understand me. He just accepted me for who I am and let me be me. While I don't generally regret things in life, I do regret the times that I yelled at him in anger. And there were far, far too many of them, especially in the last few years when his stubbornness got the best of me. However, I recognize that yelling was a part of his way of communicating, and he had this uncanny way of just forgetting about it moments after it happened. We could say, "Dad, don't you remember we just argued about that an hour ago? What are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about." Something I really treasured was his ability to comfortably sit with me in silence. He wasn't bothered by it. And we would spend hours and hours on the boat fishing sometimes, saying very little to each other. And it was pure joy. Spending time with Dad meant doing things he liked and enjoyed. And these are a few that I cherish and treasure. Eating. The man loved food. Watching the University of Georgia Bulldogs football games on Saturdays, going to and watching Eagles games on Sundays, and going to an occasional Phillies game when somebody else bought the tickets because he wasn't putting out the money for those tickets, and watching the Phillies on TV. Fishing on his boats, the Mazel and Smart Cookie. And I know many of you have boating and fishing stories about him of your own. He loved to have people join him on the boat, and he was steadfast that Saturdays were for men and fishing, and Sundays were ladies' day. Unless there was bad weather on Saturdays, and then ladies' day got kicked to the next week because Sunday was for fishing. Thank you, Dad, for instilling in me the love of Georgia football, our beloved Philadelphia Eagles and Phillies. I miss fishing with you. I miss being out on the boat with you. Thank you for teaching me to love seafood and my eternal gratitude for the gifts of summers in Ventnor, especially 13 South Rossborough Avenue, which was your and is my happy place. You taught me so many important lessons, again, many of which I didn't really understand until much later in life. I would say he exceeded in accomplishing his goal of helping me be successful and happy. To my colleagues and clients who may appreciate my legal mediation and arbitration and other skills and believe that I'm fair, thank my dad. That's part of his legacy. One of my favorite stories about him in recent years, sorry, you gotta bear with me on this one. His 87th birthday was the day that the Eagles were playing the Washington Redskins on September 21st. Sorry, I forgot the year already. He was a 50-year season ticket holder that year, so I contacted the Eagles to ask them if they would do something special for him, and they designated him as the season ticket holder of the game. They sent cheerleaders to our dinner on Friday night, and he got to take pictures. And if that wasn't like the most amazing thing for him, we got to go to the stadium early on Sunday morning with other people, my cousins, and a whole bunch of us, and we had brunch, and he got to meet and greet one of the Eagles alumni, Andy Harmon. We graded the team in the tunnel as they came out on the field. He got to go out on the field with Swoop and take pictures as the Eagles were coming out. And our security guard, who we've known now for 20 years at Lincoln Financial Field, named Frank, who will be devastated when we tell him that my dad passed. Got him an autographed signed football by the then starting quarterback, Nick Foles. This was in 2014. And then our picture was on the Jumbotron, and there was an announcement made, and we were getting texts from all kinds of people all over the place. And then my dad went home, and this is how my mom told the story. "How was it, Mary?" And he said, "It was the best day of my life, Cookie." And she said, "Well, Mary, you graduated from medical school, our wedding, we have 3 wonderful children, our children got married, we have 6 wonderful grandchildren, all these wonderful things. This was the best day of your life?" "Yep, this was the best day of my life." I kid you not. I got a text message, a voicemail message yesterday from someone who told me that that was the favorite story that my dad told him. My dad taught me so many important lessons. Again, I did that, sorry. So there are 3 songs that I've often heard in my life that always make me feel like, think of my dad and make me think of my relationship with him. Easy one, Cats in the Cradle, Harry Chapin, you probably all know it. Because I'm pretty sure, sorry, Max, that I grew up just like you, Dad. Your boy really is just like you. Father and Son by Cat Stevens. Because I can hear my dad saying to me, "You're still young, that's your fault. There's so much you have to know. Take your time, think a lot, think of everything you've got, because you will still be here tomorrow, but your dreams may not. Look at me. I'm old, but I'm happy. And finally, Leader of the Band by Dan Fogelberg. My dad left his home and went his lone and solitary way. He gave me gifts I know I never can repay. He earned his love through discipline, a thundering velvet hand. A thundering velvet hand, trust me. His gentle means of sculpting souls took me years to understand. The leader of our band is tired and his eyes are growing old, but his blood runs through me and his song is in my soul. Oh, are we getting the music? I thank you for the music and the stories of the road. I thank you for the freedom when it came my time to go. I thank you, Dad, for the kindness and the times when you got tough, and I don't think I said I love you near enough. My life has been a poor attempt to imitate the man. I am a living legacy to the leader of the band. His children, his grandchildren, are living legacies of my dad. And it is truly amazing and astonishing how much the old man learned. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Now we call Andy and Ron.
I wanted to go first because that's a hard one to follow. Thanks, Bruce. I can do this. I'd like to start by thanking each and every one of you for being here today to remember and celebrate our father and grandfather, Pop Murray. I am sure in some way he has touched or impacted every single one of you here. Seeing so many of our family and friends is truly heartwarming. It reflects what an incredibly wonderful man he was, so proud and respected. And it truly means the world to our family to have you all here and those of you who are listening via live stream. I feel like it was just yesterday that I stood up here and talked about my mom, yet here I am once again. When I sat down to write this, I thought to myself, how on earth do I sum up 96 years of a wonderful life? Someone who is as sharp as a tack till the day he passed. That's what my dad had, a wonderful life filled with so much love, joy, and happiness. He was blessed with an amazing wife of 64 and a half years, children and grandchildren who adored him and looked up to him. Today, we celebrate him, the incredible man that he was, and the life that he had. My dad was born and raised in Atlantic City, so for most of my life, I spent summers there. He loved the shore, but he hated the beach. He was a fisherman, and his ideal day was spending it out on the boat, as Bruce said, first on the Mazel and then the Smart Cookie, with whoever would join him. He kept going out time and time again, even if he did not catch anything. It became a joke in the family that when Murray was around, the fish swam away. Some of my fondest memories were days out on the boat with my girlfriends, sunbathing on the bow. I guess that was Sundays. It wasn't until we had kids of our own that he would make an appearance on the beach. He would sit a bit, listen to the Phillies on his earphones, and call it a day. I guess Ron learned that from him because when the clock strikes 4, he calls it a day and he is off the beach. As our family grew, he and my mom loved having us all down at the shore. He was the barbecue king until Ron took the job over. My dad didn't do much cooking, but what he cooked, he was great at. He was great at making certain things, gazpacho, all kinds of soups, and chopped eggplant, which was my grandmother's recipe. He was truly the soup man. After Mom was gone, Dad would go back and forth to the shore with us on weekends. He would always get out of the car when we dropped him off and say, "I had the greatest weekend with all of you kids." My dad worked very hard to provide for us when we were growing up. He would work during the day, make his rounds to see patients at the hospital, come home for an early dinner, and then go back to work most nights. Of course, Wednesdays was his day off. My dad was an amazing doctor, very caring and empathetic with his patients. He made house calls and was a school doctor for the Camden School District for many years. He even used to take my mom on house calls with him. All of his patients adored him. I would often meet one of his longtime patients who had nothing but kind and heartwarming things to say about him as a doctor. Many of his office staff were with him for many years until he retired. Once he retired, and even up until his final days, he would always introduce himself as a retired physician. No matter who he met, I'm a retired physician. He was so incredibly proud of who he was and what he had accomplished. He was always our first to call if we, our kids, or even any extended family members were sick. For us, he would always say, "Take a Tylenol and you'll be fine." Dad was a doctor right up until the end, telling the doctors and nurses what to do and how to do it. He was incredibly knowledgeable in the medical field. Ron and I just recently took him to have a clock he had fixed. We could not understand what was so important about this clock. We asked him, "What is so important about fixing this clock?" He's 96 years old. He told us that it is his Physician of the Year award clock and that it meant the world to him. In our eyes, he was Physician of the Year every year. My dad had a wonderful relationship with each one of his grandchildren. Our children felt incredibly blessed that they were able to have so much time with him in their lives while growing up, especially summers at the shore. Even when Mom was gone and we were at the beach, he always had his company back at the house with him. First, a little Ophir, and now Mabel, the family doggies. Mom and Dad started going to Florida for a few months, but not only to escape the cold and enjoy the warm weather, but also to spend time with my brother Mitchell and their grandchildren Jordan and Sam. When Ron came into my life, my father immediately welcomed him. He always treated him just like another son. He looked to him for advice about many things, especially financial. And Ron always looked to him as a second father, always calling him Dad. A true Phillies fan he was, and in over 50 years of being an Eagles season ticket holder, he almost never missed an Eagles home game. He would get there way too early, 11 o'clock to be exact, not to tailgate, but to make sure he got to park near the church for free. It wasn't until walking that far became a little difficult for him that he gave up going to the games. Instead, he would watch them from home. Being at the game with him, from what I hear, was sometimes like being alone. He would sit there with his earphones on, his binoculars in hand, and just be in his own little world. Frank, the usher in their section, always chatted with Dad, was very fond of him, and always asked about him to this day. So let's talk about his TV watching. 10 decibels or more above normal, even with his hearing aids in. He loved to watch rerun after rerun after rerun. He had his favorites, SVU, MASH, Hogan's Heroes, and Judge Judy, just to name a few. And I swear sometimes I would hear the opening music to these shows in my sleep. Whenever we would suggest a TV series or movie, he would always say, "In a bit, when this is done," but then he'd start another one. Walking down the halls to his apartment in Lionsgate, I knew exactly what show he was watching even before I got to the door. That's how loud it was. Dad was a huge Georgia Bulldogs fan, his alma mater, and always watched the games. How special it was to him when they won the championship 2 years in a row, and he got to watch it with Ron and his grandson Chad, all dressed in his Bulldog apparel. That meant the world to him and made him so happy. My dad was a very generous man beyond words with his children and grandchildren, always looking toward the future. He was a very giving man, but it always had to be on his terms. If we asked him to do something or suggested he buy something, his immediate response would be, "No," but given time, he would come around. It had to be his idea. But even with his generosity and open wallet, he was definitely a coupon man. He absolutely loved the entertainment book when that was around, and he would buy one for both New Jersey and Florida so he could use them, both places. Therefore, when we went out, dinner was usually with a coupon. On the flip side, my dad was also a very stubborn man, very set in his ways. Mom would always say that he was his mother reincarnated. Until last year, he was still driving at 95, although I just recently found out he drove at 96. We used to joke around that he had a great driving record because when someone saw a big red Cadillac on the road with a man driving who could barely see over the dashboard, they kept their distance. Of course, he blamed me when he stopped driving, telling everybody that I was making him, but once again, it really was his idea. Even though my dad was stubborn, he has let me help him out in so many ways over the past year and a half, and even before that with taking care of my mom. That time with him will always be so incredibly precious and special to me. My dad was never the expressive or talkative man. Whenever I would call their home, he would answer and say, "Hold on, here's your mother," even if it was him that I wanted to talk to. Funny how things changed, because once Mom got sick, he would call me multiple times a day, and sometimes even for the silliest or stupid of things like telling me what Mom ate. My phone would ring and I'd look at it and say, "Oy vey, it's Dad again." Dad was a very proud man, especially of his family. He adored my mom and cared for her to the bitter end. I truly believe that he has had a broken heart since she left us, but now our hearts are broken once again. But now, Dad, you and Mom are together again, which brings some comfort to me. I know that you are both watching over us, smiling at the beautiful family that you have left behind, your legacy. I will be thinking of you every single day for the rest of my life, as I do Bubby, but now wondering what amazing thing you two are doing together. You will forever be in our hearts and have no idea how much you will be missed. I love you forever. Every day Ron sends our family a different quote, and yesterday's quote and today's quote I would like him to share with everybody here.
Those we love don't go away. They walk beside us every day, unseen, unheard, but always near. Still loved, still missed, and very dear. As I typed that, I got very teary-eyed, thinking also of my dad, Poppy, and my mom, Mama, and Bubby. In the hearts of those who loved you, you will always be there. As you were, you will always be treasured forever in our memory. I keep you in my heart, the love of the past, for there it was planted forever to last. Your presence I will miss. Your memory I will always treasure. Loving you always, forgetting you never. Max, I will try and deliver as you directed me, though I will not be able to do the imitation that your dad does of Pop-Up. Never could, never would, never will. I believe my Pop-Up was the original binge watcher before streaming shows became popular. From MASH to Law & Order, SVU, the television was always cranked up to the loudest volume, letting us all know he was watching TV. And there was no changing that. I feel that his obsession with rewatching shows a bazillion times rubbed off on me a bit as well, with how many movies and shows I go back to watch often. My Pop-Up always knew how to make all my cousins and me smile and laugh, and he always did it by just being his loud, stubborn self. There was no better feeling than walking into a room to say hello to him and hear him exclaim loudly, "Well, look at all this!" Told you. So, and I didn't even say it right. Jeez. Shouldn't go off script. To exclaim loudly, "Well, look who it is," followed by whichever nickname he's coined to us grandkids. Mine was Slapsy Maxie, or Slapsy for short. Similar to how we spoke about our Bubby, Pop-Pop was born to be a grandparent. He believed in all of his grandkids' ability to succeed in whatever we wanted to do, and was generally interested in all our hobbies. Pop-Pop would tell me how proud he was of my interest in music, and he loved to watch me play the drums. He would also share his disappointment that I currently do not play the drums anymore. But it always came from a small place of regret. He loved music, and he loved sharing stories with me of when he used to play with bands when he was younger. He would tell me it was an aspect of his life he wished he was able to partake in still, and missed being able to play. Every time he shared those stories with me, I would remind him that he lived in an apartment, and I think I would anger a lot of neighbors if I started playing the drums at random hours of the day. But I promised him that I would never give up music in general, a promise I happily keep. After I played guitar to open the reception at my wedding last year, I went straight to him to ask what he thought. He smiled at me and leaned into my ear to say, "You're a better drummer." Oh, I can get laughs. Cool. Just recently celebrating my 1-year wedding anniversary, I've thought of two things. I thought about when my Bubby and Pop-Pop celebrated their 1 year many, many years ago, and if they had known then that they will have lived such a full life together, surrounded by devoted children and wonderful grandchildren. I hope that Melinda and I are as lucky as they are one day. I am so proud of Pop-Pop to have continued on without Bubby by his side the best way he could. I know he missed her. Second, I thought about how honored and blessed I was that my wedding acted as a reunion for Pop-Pop and his brothers, Uncle Jerry and Uncle Alan. The amount of friends that came up to me and Melinda to share how moved they were to see these three brothers together having the best time made my heart so full. I am grateful to have this memory and will cherish it forever. I will miss my Pop-Pop very much, but I know that he and my Bubby are reunited, which makes me happy. I know that the legacy and memories that they leave behind to my family will be a part of our lives forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron, and thank you, Max. Mitchell.
For those of you that are worrying right now, my sister and brother got the Cookie Matez public speaking Junes. I got the Mary Matez, say what you want to say and sit down. All right. My father navigated the journey of life like the experienced captain that he was. For 96 years and 269 days, my father lived the dream. He achieved his goals. Although it may not have seemed so to many of us at times, my father was a happy man. He was highly successful and a revered physician. He had a wife of over 64 years, our beloved Bubby. He had 3 children and 6 grandchildren, and he spent most of his life working to assure that they were all well cared for, and then some, and then some, and then some. 36 hours before he passed, he spent Father's Day with his family. He ate, he talked, he laughed, and he watched the Phillies. He lived his life. That's 96 years and 268 days of life. He and my mom will be in our thoughts forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitchell. Finally, we're going to call Ilana and then Lacey.
My Pop-Pop was the most generous and caring person. He lived an amazing 96 years. His favorite place to be was the shore. We could always count on the Phillies or SVU being on the TV blasting, or seeing him outside sleeping on the porch as we came back to the house. There will now be even a bigger piece missing down there without you and Bubby, but I'll treasure all the time that we spent together there. For the last few years, I have become his part-time chauffeur driver, and I always knew when I called to say I'm on my way, he would say, "Okay, give me a 10-minute warning," even though he knew I only lived about a 10-minute drive away. So that should have been his warning. He would always get in the car and, just like Bubby, ask, "Where's Adam?" if he wasn't with me. Then he would start telling me that something was wrong in the apartment and that Adam had to come over, even if it was little and I could fix it. I loved our Thursday night dinners, but only when he decided that he didn't like what was for dinner. If they were serving split pea soup, he would say, "Sorry, maybe next week" to us. In just 6 short weeks, Adam and I will be getting married, and as much as I wanted him there, I know that he and Bubby will be watching over us at the wedding together. Bubby will be saying, "Murray, doesn't she just look stunning?" I am so fortunate of the last 30 years that I've had with him, and that he was able to get to know Adam and form his own relationship with him. It makes me so proud and happy that I know he loved Adam like one of his own grandchildren. Up until the end, we knew that he was still there because he was needing to know everything that the nurses and doctors were doing and telling them what he wanted and what he didn't want. Because, as Pop-Up always said, I am a retired physician. I'm so lucky that we got to spend Sunday together. I will miss you so much and love you, Papa.
When I stood up here a year and a half ago to say goodbye to Bubby, I could have never imagined standing up here again so shortly after to say goodbye to Pop-Up. I mean, it's Pop-Up. The man, as Chad liked to say, he was immortal. Healthy as a horse, sharp as a tack, we all often dreamt of the huge party we were going to throw for his 100th birthday. Pop-Up was many things. For starters, he was the backbone of our family. He was also the ultimate truth teller. If you didn't want to hear the straightforward truth, you did not ask Pop-Up. Aside from being a doctor, Pop-Up also doubled as a vet, the parking police, a contestant on Jeopardy, and best of all, food critic, especially at Lionsgate. He may not have actually been those things and held those titles, but he for sure thought that he did. Pop-Up was generous, selfless, insightful, and strong, the greatest role model for us grandkids. I always felt a sense of pride getting to share with Pop-Up a good grade on a test, getting into college, news of a new job, a promotion, whatever it was. I was always so excited to share my accomplishments with him because the pride that he had for his kids and grandkids was truly unmatched. Summers in Ventnor are and will always be the most special times. I feel so fortunate to have spent so many summers down the shore with both Bubby and Pop-Up. That time with them is something that I will forever be grateful for and cherish. Pop-Up, always sitting at the head of the dinner table, often chewing with his mouth open. I'd kindly ask him to finish his food before talking, but because we couldn't understand a word he was saying. Did he do that? Of course not. Because Pop-Up did what he wanted, as you've heard today, stubborn man. And hey, at 96, I guess you earned the ability to do that. He was not afraid to remind us of that quite often. His presence at the dinner table will be deeply missed. I'd come down the stairs in my ripped jeans, and Papa would ask if I paid full price to have them like that. We'd sip coffee on the porch together while Law and Order, SVU, and Judge Judy blasted from inside, people often begging him to turn it down. When I got my dog Mabel, a new tradition emerged where she would sit on top of the couch, watching TV with him, her tail just constantly hitting him in the face, over and over again, and being the good sport that he was, he just let it happen, with the occasional, "Get away, Mabel." I can't do it like you, Uncle Bruce. I don't think anybody can. Pop-Up usually left the cooking to Bubby. However, his tomato soup was my ultimate favorite. He made it with fresh tomatoes that he grew in his garden, and he'd get so excited to make it and have me be the first to try it while it was still simmering on the stove. He'd sometimes call me midweek, so excited, ask if I wanted him to make it, and even on a 90-degree summer day, I could and I would never say no. Pop-Up's memory was so impressive. He'd ask me about things that I genuinely didn't remember telling him. It's just who he was, always listening and storing that information away. He'd tell stories from decades ago, remembering every small detail. My favorite were, of course, the ones with Bubby, recalling how they met, the amazing trips that they took over the years together, and just more memories of the beautiful life that they created. Pop-Up was also my September birthday buddy, my fellow Virgo. Virgos are known for being intelligent, practical, loyal, and well-grounded, all traits that really encompassed Pop-Up. It was all traits that Pop-Up not only possessed, but also made people respect him, including his patients, family, friends, and quite frankly, people who barely knew him. My friends referred to him as Pop-Up, similarly to how they said Bubby. They were truly the grandparents to those who didn't have, and also an extra set for those that did. It's never enough time. I had almost 29 years with Pop-Up, and I still feel robbed of it. However, I feel his presence here today, and two things are happening. One, he wants us to get this show on the road so he can get to lunch and his lecture at Lionsgate. And two, they would want us to know that they're together. Maybe on the Smart Cookie, Pop-Up's fishing boat named after Bubby, or on the porch of 13 South Rossborough, snoozing away. Wherever they are, they've been reunited, and I find so much peace in knowing that. As it's been said today, we can all find comfort in knowing they're together. Pop-Up, thank you for the unconditional love all these years. You will forever hold such a special place in my heart. I'll think of you when I get that promotion at work. I'll think of you when SVU comes on the TV. I'll think of you on our famous lobster night down the shore. I'll think of you every time I eat tomato soup. I'll think of you in September, around our birthdays. I will always be thinking of you, and I love you.
Thank you so much to all who shared beautiful reflections and memories, and all who will over the course of Shiva period that will begin to unfold, as well as in the weeks and months to come. I only want to take a brief moment to recognize and perhaps also reaffirm what is on all of our minds today, which is that we have all lost a really wonderful, substantive, thoughtful, accomplished, and memorable man. You were blessed to have him as your beloved father and brother and Pop-Up. And although intellectually we know that nobody lives forever, our hearts are still very heavy with the pain of loss. I want to also affirm how grateful we are for Murray's service to our country in uniform, which will be reflected as well in the moving honor guard ceremony that will take place at the cemetery. And I want to say that we are grateful at Bethel that Murray and Cookie associated their names with our congregation for so long, and for the ongoing connections to our shul and Jewish community that their leadership and example inspired. I wish I had coined the phrase because it is so apt and accurate, which is that according to the depth of the love is the depth of the loss, except that the love is always stronger than the loss. Your love, appreciation, care, and devotion to Murray will see you to the other side of the valley that represents the path of loss that you now travel once again. He taught you so much, and the truth is that he taught everyone who had the chance to know and to be positively influenced by him. Though I knew him only for a short time, I feel blessed to be able to carry memories of our conversations and the inescapable sense that his presence was a very special one for everyone who was privileged to have known him. And his legacy will most certainly live on through this very beautiful family and through those who are similarly blessed to have Murray in their lives. May the soul of Dr. Murray Matez be bound up in the bond of eternal life. May he rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. I want to return for a second to where Bruce started. This is from Rabbi to Synagogue President. The fund that is being set up by the Matez family, especially dedicated and devoted to Cookie's devotion to women's leadership and empowerment, I promise you, you have my word, that any dollar that comes to Bethel that is labeled in any way with the name Matez on it will be directed to this new and very important fund. You can give it to the general fund. You can give it to my discretionary fund, to Chazan's discretionary fund. Just put Matez in the subject, and I promise you every dollar will be put into this very special and meaningful fund that is going to do a lot of good for a lot of people at Bethel and in the community for many years to come. Shiva will begin following the interment today at Andy and Ron's home on Pommel Court in Mount Laurel, and there'll be service tonight in their home at 7 p.m. We'll start following the interment, and there'll be a service at 7 p.m. Friday visitation welcome from 1 to 4, Sunday 1 to 5, and 6:30 to 8:30 with a service Sunday at 7 o'clock p.m. And due to the excessive heat warnings today, I would be remiss if I did not mention that in connection to those coming to the cemetery, that your health and safety is paramount, and so I ask you to please be cautious in a way that makes sense to you. At this time, I will ask you to rise in body or in spirit for the Amaleh Memorial Prayer.
El male rachamim shochen bamromim hamitzeh menucha nechona tachat kanfei hashchina b'ma'alot kedoshim utehorim kezohar harakia mazhirim et nishmat Mordechai Nuta ben Tzvi Aryeh v'Chaya Sarah שהלך לעולמו בגן עדן דמנוחתו. אנא בעל הרחמים, אז תראהו בסתר כנפיך לעולמים. וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו. אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום משכבו, ונאמר Amen. O God, exalted and full of compassion, grant perfect peace in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure, to the soul of Dr. Murray Matez, Mordechai Nuta ben Tzvi Aryeh v'Chaya Sarah, who has gone to his eternal home. Master of mercy, we pray, remember all the worthy and righteous deeds that he performed in the land of the living. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. May he rest in peace. And please say with me, Amen. You may be seated.
Rise once more, please. Folks in this row,